furry friend who might say hi later. Her name is Callie, and she's very pretty. I don't know if Callie will come. Come, Callie. Callie, do you want to say hi? So when we think about Thanksgiving, it's a good topic even if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, because I know Canada celebrates at a different time, and I know it's not really international, but you can get some ideas. So we're going to talk a lot about peace and the different things that you can learn with Thanksgiving. And some of those is, after all, Thanksgiving is a word of action, like W.J. Cameron says, and it's a great time to show our students and tell them the story, and also through the story of Thanksgiving and the history, it's a good time to show them what it means to get along with other cultures. And so I think for this aspect alone, it's something very nice to go over with our learners, even if we are in different countries. So what can you do with Thanksgiving? What can our learners actually learn? Well, there's actually quite a few things that they can learn. Let me make these a little bit bigger on the slide. And one of them is that Thanksgiving helps students learn about culture, assimilation, history, nature, peace, collaboration, and geography. So these are all things that with these activities I'm going to talk about and the resources that you can integrate into teaching with your learners. And if you're part of CLIL, Content Language Integrated Learning, then one of the aspects or the 4 criteria of CLIL and even of the CEFR, which is the European Union framework of what it means to teach language, is the culture part. And I think a lot of times it's very difficult to integrate culture into lessons, ideas, but through Thanksgiving activities and activities here, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to integrate that aspect into your curriculum. So, what kind of books? Well, we can start off by reading books. I mean, that's probably how you do. When I was teaching my language learners in Germany, that's what I would do. I would sit with them, and first I had to introduce them to the story. So we would sit and we would have a story time, and we would read about Thanksgiving. Now, if you have older learners, even with teens, we did this. We taught Pilgrim's First Thanksgiving. That's a little bit more difficult, a larger read. So for kids, you want to choose something like Twist the Night Before Thanksgiving, or It's Thanksgiving, Today is Thanksgiving, with very young learners. But with other learners, you can do the other types of books. And then after that, it's important that we can retell the Thanksgiving story. So we can do this through a play with finger puppets, with our fingers, with puppets, just regular puppets. We could do this with online story tools like Storybird, Zooburst, Little Bird Tales, Carpoof, and the Book Creator app, if you can use mobile devices. You can find a lot of free printables if you go to scholastic.com, the printables there, okay? Now remember, all of these are going to be bookmarked for you, and you can find all the links if you go to this address here, okay? So you can find all the bookmarks in the presentation at the bit.ly ELT links address. That's also where you can find your certificate to download for attending this webinar. And these are how you can make really easy, simple finger puppets that your students can use to retell the Thanksgiving story. But one of my favorite sites is Scholastic. Scholastic is one of the best sites I think there is out there. Scholastic has all of these really cool Thanksgiving activities for you that you can do, and it's just amazing, all the things that you can do. So if you want to teach history, then Thanksgiving, and it's not necessarily related to Thanksgiving, Scholastic is also a really, really great site for this. What it does is it takes the students on a virtual trip. The students actually get to go on the Mayflower, and they get to see people, like real people that are reenacting it. They're actors, and these actors are giving little stories of all the tragedy, the sickness, all the things that they encountered while on the Mayflower, because it was a big struggle. So that's part of the Thanksgiving story. And the story doesn't start actually in America. The story starts in Plymouth. And Plymouth is where? Can you type in the chat box where you think Plymouth might be? Does anyone know where Plymouth is? I actually got to do a keynote in Plymouth for Steve Wheeler in Timbuktu. Yeah, in the UK. That's where he's from. And now it would be interesting to find out, and your teens and your adults might like this, but Plymouth is actually in the real Plymouth is located in it's a restroom area now, a public restroom area now in the UK. So they moved the actual like rock and everything like that to the shore, but that's not the original Plymouth spot. At least according to Steve Wheeler, Timbuktu. So you can have them go through this voyage. Just a part of the voyage and what that would be, that can be a way to motivate our learners to write a story. So they can think about that and they can rewrite a story about being on the Mayflower. And we're going to look at tools in a little bit. But I want to show you more of Scholastic. So here's Scholastic. If you go to Thanksgiving, then one of the places is called this webcast. And the webcast will show them a video of what it looks like right now. Now, this isn't a cartoon. This is a real, actual video. You can have your students choose which one you want them to see. Do they want them to tour Pilgrim Village? Do you want them to tour? These are called virtual tours. And your students are basically taking a field trip. But you don't have to leave your classroom. But it looks very real, and they're immersed in it, and they do a lot of learning. And for them, it's very interesting. It's more interesting than reading a book. So they can tour the Plymouth Plantation. They can tour the Wampanoag home site. And the reason why they do Wampanoag, and this is the Native Americans, and these were part of the Native Americans who helped the Pilgrims. So we know that the Thanksgiving story, if you're not familiar with, is basically there were these settlers, and they all came on a ship, okay, the Mayflower ship. And they came to America, and when they landed in America, there was already Native Americans that lived here. There were tribes that lived here. And when these tribes lived here, they were so different. So if you can just imagine that, if you can imagine that we had these settlers, and they wore proper clothes, and they wore dresses, and they wore hats to cover themselves. The ladies did. They were very proper. And then they come and they meet Native Americans, and Native Americans hardly dressed at all. Sometimes the women wore very, very, very short, scantily clad things because the tribes, they didn't see it like that. You know, the tribes were of the land, so they had to be free, and they lived off the land. They lived in huts and things. So imagine meeting that different of people and then having to get along and having to, the Native Americans, you know, obviously were there, and all of a sudden they have these settlers that decide that they're going to be their home. But the Native Americans had already had this as their home. So imagine trying to get along with such different types of societies, different births, but on top of all of that, it's about who's home. How do we all live here in this one land? So it's a very interesting story to share with your learners as well. And so it's good to show them all these different aspects, to show them the Thanksgiving story from many different stakeholders who actually took part, so that way they don't get this colored view of it. And then they can also learn about America in this way as well, and the birth of America, and that it's not necessarily every country, when it begins, when it starts, doesn't necessarily have a brightly painted beginning. So you can even think about that. You can even tie it into asking your adult students or your teenagers or even the kids, you know, how did we begin? How did, how did Oman begin, or how did Venezuela begin, or how did Turkey begin? How did the Ukraine begin? How did all of our countries begin? And what was the colored history there? Because there's different views as well. Scholastic does great stuff as well because it shows in the way that teenagers and kids enjoy. And one of the ways that they do is these digital scrapbooks. So you can actually look at digital scrapbooks of one of the pilgrims, Patience Whipple, and then also of a Native American. So you get both of their scrapbooks. You can compare and contrast. You can play games in them. You can find recipes. And so you can teach a little bit of math and science as well because they can cook the recipes from way back then. They can even make their own digital scrapbooks as well. They can read letters, actual letters that have been archived and shown online from a Native American boy and from a Pilgrim girl. And so how they are very different. For children, you can do this, and this is a good thing for children, and you can tell them to compare their life. You can say, how's your life growing up here? You know, who do you connect with more? Do you connect more with the Pilgrim experience, or do you think your life is more like the Native American experience? So this can be very interesting for kids. Another thing is you can tell kids, okay, these are letters, but what do we write now? We write emails, we write text. So they can take the letters and they can translate them into text to each other. You can say, okay, pretend that, you know, this Pilgrim girl and this Native American boy were texting each other. What would that conversation look like? Or let's role play. What would this conversation look like? Or they sent each other postcards or digital postcards or e-cards or emails, and you can use any kind of email or postcard service to kind of do this, to say, okay, we're here and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this. We're going to make emails to each other. And how are these going to look? They can even make a digital scrapbook about it. So some writing ideas for Thanksgiving. Well, here's a few that you can do. So I said Storybird. Storybird is the easiest and quickest way to write a story. So once you sign up for it, you can even give your students, they don't necessarily have to have an email address. Once you have a teacher account, you can actually make all these accounts. You can make it a collaborative story. I didn't realize this until I started using this with my students this year. And this year, you can make a collaborative story. Your students can get together and write stories together. So once you have them on a class, that's the great thing about Storybird. I started using it this year really with my students, and it creates classes for you, and it does all this for free. So then your students just have to sign up to the class. They don't have to put their email, and then they have these beautiful books. So some of the ideas you can use with this are you can research a person who took part in the event and tell it from their point of view. You can have your students foretell what would life be without Thanksgiving. And that's something to think about, because what if the settlers and the Native Americans never got along? What if the settlers went home? What if they packed up their bags and they said, oh no, this is just too much for us. We cannot live off the land. It is we can't get along with the Native Americans. You know, so this is a story that they can write and describe how you would celebrate, how each of them celebrates any kind of holiday. So there's many holidays coming up: Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, all kinds of holidays, and you can have your students decide how they celebrate holidays. What kind of feasts do they have? What kind of cooking do they have? What kind of recipes and dishes? Now for America, if you do teach in America, this is kind of something very cool you can do too, because I know for me, I'm Latina. My family is Mexican, and so we have Mexican roots. And so every time that we have a Thanksgiving dinner, we have tamales. We have tamales and we have menudo. So these are things that are not in the typical. We do have turkey as well, but we have different kinds of dishes from that are Tex-Mex dishes that speak of our heritage. And so these are some of the things that your students can write about, and they can compare and contrast it, and they can find it very interesting. I find it very interesting. You might have your students talk about that. If they married someone from a different culture, then they can find that this is a very different experience as well. For me, I find, you know, when I'm in a relationship that has been a case, or when I visited friends from a different culture, you know, cranberry sauce. We never had cranberry sauce. Some of the things that they had we didn't have. So it was very surprising for me to go to somebody else's dinner and to really take a look at that. Write a story about unlikely relationships as well. So I'm going to show you a cool tool you can use for any of your upcoming holidays, which is Bunty.com. Bunty is absolutely amazing. It's my new favorite free tool out there. It's made from the people at Rackspace who are programmers, so they know their stuff. It's free. It's a free app on your iPad as an iOS device as well. Unfortunately, it's not on Android yet, but you can do really cool things. Okay, so I'm going to zoom this in so you can see some of the cool things of Bunty. Bunty.com. Backgrounds. It has really cool backgrounds. It has where you can have photos and PDFs that you can upload. So you can have an online classroom. You can share your PDFs on there. You can share the handouts or anything you want the students to do, instructions. Videos, you can upload videos. You can integrate videos. It has YouTube videos that are embedded. It looks a lot like Glogster, but the thing for me that I really love about Bunty is it doesn't crash like Glogster. And it's protected because there's a lot of times in Glogster you go on and it has all this junk if you get the free version now, because they don't really have a free educational version now. But Bunty does. You have audio, and this is the best part. So I'll show you that in a little bit. Text, messages, quotes, drawings, stickers. You can drag and drop places. So it's a canvas. It's a blank canvas, and you put all the stuff in. So it's very creative. You can do all these things. So these are the Bunty Thanksgiving background. So you can put a little canvas and it looks like this. See, it's pretty nice. It's very nice. These are what the stickers look like. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do all of, so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, it has little stickers like that, so it has something for Diwali and Thanksgiving and Hanukkah and Christmas and fireworks for New Year's. So it's very, very, very cool. You can see all the cool things here, and there's so much more. This is only like a little small part of Bunty. And this is my favorite part. My favorite part is Bunty Audio. And of course, you can always add your own text as well, your own photos and all of that. You can put on Bunty. But this is my favorite part, is it's integrated with SoundCloud. So you can actually look up Thanksgiving, and it will show you everybody's SoundCloud. Now, SoundCloud is this service, and you don't even have to be signed up. People put their own podcasts on SoundCloud. They put their own music. So you can find the Thanksgiving Story podcast and read out loud from people everywhere, like Thanksgiving itself. And that's so cool. So you got access to podcasts and holiday music as well. So you can add music to your Bunty. It's a great digital storytelling tool. I love it. This is what a Bunty can look like. You can have a little bit of audio. You can even have your own voice recorded. So you can narrate things. You can get pictures and all these kinds of things. That is just a very simple Bunty. But you can make your Bunty look as pretty in any way that you want. And here's the iPad app that's free for Bunty. It's really cool. So your students once they have it downloaded, they can upload their photos. They can draw. They can draw on the Bunty. I love apps where you can absolutely draw. Okay, so enough about Bunty. You can recreate the Mayflower experience with GoAnimate. So GoAnimate is this awesome tool. It's gotten even better. Now it's got GoAnimate for Education. And if you haven't seen GoAnimate in a while, if you haven't used it, they revamped it. It looks like this now. Look how cool that is. So it doesn't look like it used to look. It's very new now. It's very different than what it used to look like. I'll make that a little bit bigger. So now it has like this storyboarding, and you can drag and drop, and you can put things, and it looks a little like Camtasia. It looks and GarageBand. You can add your own voice. The students can add their voices. They can tell all sorts of kinds of digital stories. They can do a text-to-speech. They type it in, and then it's read for them, and it's read for them in different accents. They can choose Australian. They can choose from India. They can choose from the UK. They can use British accent, all kinds, Americanized accents. They can choose all of that, French, all of this kind of cool stuff. But this GoAnimate, it makes a really cool video. You choose the characters. You can put them in pairs. and then they can pretend what the Mayflower experience is. One of the cool tools so there's a lot of games and interactive sites as well. And so I think these are really nice to look at. They're really cool. Your students will love them. They'll have a lot of fun. And one of them is the historyglobe.com. This is actually a game. It's the Jamestown online adventure game. Now look at the things that you learn from this. You learn about maps. You learn how to navigate. You learn about north, south, east, and west. So all of these things are very, very cool to learn. I think your students, not only are they learning about history, but they're learning about geography as well. So this is the History Globe Jamestown game, and it's very immersive. The only thing is that you can have them do it. I sometimes flip the classroom and I have them play the game at home if they can. And after they play the game, then they can write something about it and their experience. I'll have them do like a follow-up essay or something like that as well. The other really interesting site that I like a lot is they get to be investigators. So imagine that you were going to do something like where you CSI. Well, students love CSI. Maybe. I don't know if your culture knows about CSI or if they play it in your country, but it's basically like crime scene. And so they get to be sort of like that. What they do is they look at all these clues, and what they do is they actually go and they take the clues and they get to be archivists. They get to archive and do this really cool stuff. So all of this is actually at Plymouth.com. I'm going to go ahead and share that with you. They do online interactive investigation. They have a lesson plan for you. They have graphic organizers. So you don't even need to write the lesson plan. In fact, they wrote it for you. So you can choose from a bunch of ones that you can use in your classroom tomorrow, actually. You could, if you decided to look at this really quick, it's a great lesson plan. It has graphic organizers. You use things like the KWL chart. So they start out with that, what they know, what they learn, and he walks you through the steps. And then you get to go on this wonderful excavation where they get to collect artifacts and have clues. So your students will enjoy it. For very, very, very small kids, you may be familiar with the site Starfall. And Starfall is one of my favorite sites for young learners. So if you teach young learners, then Starfall is where you want to be. It has so many games. It has phonics. So if you're trying to teach pronunciation or literacy, Starfall has amazing games and stuff for very young kids. I used to teach 4 to 6-year-olds and 2 to 4-year-olds as well in Germany, and I used Starfall all the time, and they loved it. So one of the ones they have for Thanksgiving, they have a bunch of them, but if you look at this one in particular, this is my favorite one, it's the silly turkey. It's how to make a silly turkey, and it reads these sentences to them, and it also pronounces to them. It'll take out parts of it like turkey. It'll take like key and then it'll focus and it'll say key. And so there's a lot of things that it'll do. So it's add a hat to the silly turkey and it pronounces it, but it does it with a kid voice so that way they can hear it and it doesn't sound like a fake voice saying it, which I like. It sounds a bit authentic. They can learn through apps. There's various apps online. So if you can use apps, what are the great apps to use? Well, there's, of course, the one I always recommend, which is the Talking Turkey app. You can find that on iOS. You can also find that on Android. And it's a great app. One of the things that it does is it has a turkey that mimics everything you say. So if you say, "Hi, I'm a turkey," it'll come out and in a funny voice, it'll say, "Hi, I'm a turkey." It's really funny. So you can have the students. When I was working, and I've worked with students in 26 different countries face-to-face, okay? And so I'm always the native speaking English teacher. They're like, "Oh my gosh, she's from America." They never want to talk to me. They're very shy. So the way I get them to speak is I pop out this app. I pop it out on my one phone or my iPad that I have. And I have these downloaded. I have it downloaded on my phone. And I do this with all kids everywhere I go. And so then I take it out and I say, can you say hi to my friend? and they say hello, and they notice right away that he's going to repeat everything that they say. And so what they do is they get so excited about it, and they start trying to make them rap. And I remember I did this with, you may be familiar with Evridiki Dakos. And she's this incredible teacher trainer. She's Greek, and she lives in Turkey. And I was with her daughter, Catalina. And so Catalina had, I was with her and taking care of her. And so I whipped this out. And Catalina started then asking me how to say all of these things in English. She's like, how can I say this and how can I say that? And she would go and she would tell the turkey, or she would tell the talking app, and she would just, it would repeat, and she loved it. So she kept learning English on her own and repeating all these words and everything. And you make a video with it, and you can make them dance and all kinds of cool things. So that you can have your students do a lesson plan where they sing turkey chants and songs, and you can find a lot of turkey chants out there. They can tell a story, a poem, or a joke. There's a lot of great kids' Thanksgiving jokes out there that they can tell, and a lot of Thanksgiving stories. They can even retell this is my favorite one. The turkey pleads for his life. So they say, and you can especially do this if you're in another country, because you don't eat turkey for Thanksgiving. More than likely you don't celebrate there, so people won't find it that offensive. But the turkey goes and says why he has to make a case. He has to argue why he himself should not be eaten. And it could be things like, I'm the best turkey in the world. I am the smartest turkey in the world. It would be a shame. I taste terrible. I mean, there's so many things that your students can brainstorm to come up with why their particular turkey should not be eaten. Or it could be a list of blessings, because this is something that we do during Thanksgiving time. Is a lot of families will come around a table and they'll say what they are thankful for. So this is a common Thanksgiving tradition in American households. I'm not so sure with Canada. They do have Thanksgiving too, though. So you might see that. One of my favorite apps is this one. This one just came out. It's called Thanksgiving Photo Cards. It's only for iOS. It's not for Android. The other one's for Android, but this one isn't. But the great thing about this one is the child can draw on it, which I love, because when you get to draw with the apps, then students that have ADHD and students that are autistic, they really are open to drawing. They really love drawing on the mobile devices, and it really calms them down a lot. My adopted son, he's autistic, and that was one of the things that has really helped him a lot, is working with apps where he can draw. They can upload their photo, and they can write all kinds of very cool things. They can write a story and all kinds of things with the Thanksgiving photo card app. And then there's Sincerely Ink Cards. Sincerely Ink Cards is for iOS and Android, and they can send thank you notes to different people as well. And then one of the things that I did, and these are my students, is we had, with the high school students, we had a Thanksgiving international meal. So they didn't do turkey and stuff, but each of them brought in their own cultural dish, something that's very popular whenever they are getting together for a meal. And so the different countries did that. And then they also gave a presentation that had to deal with their culture. So we had some teach us how to make tea traditionally from Beijing. And then also how to, we had the parents volunteer. We invited the whole community, some of them how to write in their language, how to say things in their language. So it was a lot of things to do. Oh, you're welcome, Margarita. So you can find all of these links and resources if you go to the Pearl Trees for Thanksgiving. But I'm going to give you all of this in the chat box as well. And I've marked them down as well if you go to the bit.ly address. So if you just go to the bit.ly address, you can download your certificate that you attended. You can send it to your director. There's different ways to look at this as well. And then if you try these lessons, let me know, and then I can always make them better. Larry Perlazzo has the best sites to learn teaching about Thanksgiving. He's a great person to follow. And then, of course, there's Sue Lyon Jones, who has esolcourses.com, and she does Thanksgiving. Yes, Alexandra, please share your links. If you all have any links, I'll add it to the Pearl Trees as well, and then it'll be there. So thank you so much. And thank you for attending. I'm going to write a blog post about it as well with all the slides. But you can go to the slides as well. Bye, Miguel. Thank you for coming. And Margarita and Scott and Sahid and Zubia and Alexandra. And you can, the clubbing. Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to add that right now. And that should be up in that bit.ly soon. So have a great weekend.